So today I'm with an ex-colleague who was born in Normandy. She wasn't alive on D-Day, but just afterwards. So she's going to tell us what she remembers and things about her family. So this is Danielle Dubosc.
Hello.
When you weren't born on D-Day, but you were born just after.
I was born at the end of July 1944.
Mm-hmm.
So my poor mother was 8 months pregnant when all this was taking place, you know. Near Utah Beach, she lived in a small town named Carentan. If you've seen the film Band of Brothers, you know where Carentan is, south of Cherbourg, the port. And after a while, it became too complicated. They went to escape and hide at my grandmother's farm, which was in a small... It's not even a village, it was in the countryside, and it's called St Jean de Daye. It was about, I would say, 10, 15 miles from Carentan. Yeah.
On the way to Saint Lo.
Yes. Mm.
And what happened when you were going to be born? I remember you've told me about that.
So, yeah, so we were living in Carentan on Rue Olgat, which is the main shopping street, you know. And so anyway, my dad at the time was working at the train station, and he was a member of the French resistance. And it was very complicated. When there was the German wagons full of ammunition, he would direct them on the wrong tracks. Yeah, and with his buddies, members of the resistance, they would go through the roof of a warehouse not too far in Carentan, and they would go there at night, and they would cut the bottom of the bags of supplies. The Germans had stored flour, rice, sugar, you know, things like that. And they would cut the bottom of the bags, and when the Germans would come to get supplies, it would spread all over the floor when they were trying to get something. But my father used to say it didn't put the local population in jeopardy, in danger of retaliation. My poor dad went to jail in Saint-Lô for 1 month. The Germans put him in jail there. They caught him at one time. Another time he was put in the Caen jail 2 months. And it's lucky he was not there on June 6th because, as you know, some of those poor guys, there's a memorial outside of the memorial in Caen where they commemorate those poor soldiers, those poor French people that were never found. The remains have not been found yet.
Yeah.
So luckily he was out of that jail in Caen when all this was happening.
What was he arrested for?
Oh, you know, I have some newspaper article. I should read them, and I don't know exactly, but...
I remember you told me something once that your mum was taken to the hospital in an American truck.
So when they went to St Jean de Daye, the farm was surrounded by hedgerows, thick hedgerows, and ditches, you know. On the left-hand side, you had a river with trees, and the Americans were ambushed behind the trees on this river. And then the Germans were ambushed in the hedgerows surrounding the farm. After a while, some of them came out of the ditches, and they were dirty, bearded, hungry. And they said to my grandmother in a very nasty tone of voice, "Wir wollen essen." My grandmother understood. She said, "Well, sorry, we don't have food even for us." Which was not quite true. She had managed to hide some food for the family. There was my grandmother, my father, my mother, a cousin of my father named Suzanne, and maybe his sister was there for a while. Anyway, they were hiding there in that farmhouse, but suddenly the Germans came out and they wanted to eat. "Wir wollen essen." So my grandmother, no. So the guy, one of the Germans, sees that there was a live goat in the courtyard of the farmhouse. And he pointed to the goat and he said, "Essen!" Ooh, my grandmother thought he was a bit nasty. He was so hungry. She said, "Okay, take the goat." They took the goat, came back a little while later. They had killed it, taken out the skin, cut it in pieces. And he says to my grandmother, "Do you have a pot big enough to cook it over the fireplace?" And my grandmother said, "No, sorry, I don't have anything large enough to put a whole goat in it." So they went to look around, those young soldiers, and they were quite young Germans. And they came back with a, what do you call it in English, une lessiveuse, a wash basin.
Wash tub.
Yeah, in the old time you used to do your wash like that. You would put it over the fireplace in a big aluminium my English is getting bad. Seau, un seau. Comment on dit un seau?
Bucket.
Bucket, yes. So anyway, they put the goat in it, they covered it with water, and they said to my grandmother, we are going to leave for a while, so you watch the cooking. She said, yeah, sure. As soon as they were gone, you know what she would do? She would spit in it. And pretty soon there was some foam on top because they had not washed the inside very well, and it was coated with soap, because it was used to do the wash.
The wash tub.
Yeah, so there was foam on it. They were so hungry when they came back, they took it, started to make a circle on the courtyard outside, and they were eating it with their hands. And Suzanne got sick to see them eating like this, and her little dog had run away, the cousin, Suzanne. So she decided to run after her dog who was gone in a field. And my grandmother said, don't, it could be dangerous, And it was, because the poor Suzanne, there was I don't know if it was from a bomb or a mine or whatever. I should have asked, but when you're a kid, you don't ask the right questions, But I know that she died, instant death. And when I was born a few weeks later, I was named Danielle Suzanne Marie Joseph. Suzanne for this cousin who died during this period, So anyway, at one point, the Americans arrived at the farm. At first, they were a bit surprised to see French people. But my grandmother had been waving a white piece of cloth to show them, it was peace. And they looked and they see my mother. One of the soldiers sees my mother with a big tummy like this, and he says, what are you doing here, you crazy French people? Don't you know there's a war going on? You shouldn't be here. It's not safe. And he sees my mother. He says, lady, you cannot stay here. It's not safe. We are going to drive you to Carentan because Carentan is now in American hands and there's a hospital there. So my mother accepted, so they put her on board a jeep and proceeded to drive towards Carentan. But along the way, it was probably in early mid-July, I don't know exactly the date, but it was very hot and my mom was very thirsty. So she didn't speak English. The driver of the jeep didn't speak French, but she managed to let him understand that she would love to drink something. So the American soldier said, no problem, lady. He stopped the jeep. He goes to the side of the road. There was a ditch full of water there. He took, at first he was looking for a container. He went to the back of the jeep, he looked around and he found the cardboard box. He goes with the cardboard box to the ditch, he gets some of the water in the cardboard box. He comes to my mother, he hands it to her to drink, and my mom, first he got a little pill from his pocket. He had a box with purifying pills, and he puts one in the water, it fizzled, and then he hands it to my mother to drink. And my mom used to say, I didn't feel like drinking dirty water from the ditch. So the guy took a sip of it to show her it was safe to drink it. So she said, finally, I drank it. A few days later, you came out into this world and you were perfect. I'm perfect. Yeah, so the family survived, except for Suzanne. Suzanne died. Her husband was a prisoner of war in Germany when this happened. And when they came back to the farm, the poor body had been laid on the wood farm table. There was maggots and all this all over the place. It was really, for my grandmother, it was a very sad time, yeah. The funny thing, one of my earliest memories is an English word. I was not even 3 years old when I learned that word. It was the word gum. Because one day when I was 2 or 3, an American soldier gave me a chewing gum and he showed me to chew it and not swallow it. So I learned the word gum. So every time I heard an airplane flying above Carentan, I would scream at the airplane, gum, gum, because I thought the airplane was going to throw gum at me. Yeah.
So your father was, you said he trained as a paratrooper?
Yeah, the Americans trained him in St Avold, which is not a town that I know, but it's in the Fierre County, Fierre, C-H-E-R County, St Avold. He was trained as, I have a few pictures. He's in, it's almost a uniform, American clothes for a paratrooper, yeah.
And you said he was going to be in an operation, and then the war started. The war finished, I mean. In 45.
Yeah, because he took his jump and he learned that the war was over as he was taking his jump. Yeah.
Where was that going to be?
I don't know. You know, I wish I had asked more questions. If it was today, my father, if he was still alive, I would ask him all kind of details. But at the time, I was a young girl listening to those stories, and you know, I didn't ask the right questions. Yeah. Carentan, you know, they want to get funds to erect some statues for the 91st Airborne, and a little girl there named Danielle, like me, Danielle Linné, she was 4 years old, and there was a ceremony on June 23rd, 1944, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, Danielle.
Yeah, and there was a German thing that blew up, and the 3 Americans died, and the little French girl as well. Could have been me. She was 4 years old, so in 44. My father, you know, one time I went to live in Germany for a year and a half because it was my second foreign language in school. So I went to live in Germany to perfect my knowledge of German. And my dad didn't speak to me for almost 2 years. And I came to see him. He was working at the Saint-Lazare train station in Paris. And he says to me, "Go back to your bush." You know, like the Krauts, les bush. He was so very upset because, you know, he told me later, the Germans would tie him up with chains on his wrist, on his ankles, and they would pee on him. They would pee on him. So you don't forget that kind of thing. And my father hated the Germans until he died. But me, I learned German, you know. Yeah. Ja, ich spreche auch Deutsch. Ein bisschen. Ich spreche viel besser Englisch.
When you were in Germany?
Yes. Heidelberg, Kaiserslautern. There was an American base there, and then I worked for Ramstein Air Force Base. If you wonder how I learned my English, well, when I was working in Spain, in Mataró, near Barcelona, I was working at the reception of a camping site, and my mother with her husband, they were staying there, and they had a little dog named Yankee, a little black dog named Yankee. And so someday I saw a van coming in the camping site with license plates from Americans in Germany. And I thought, oh, he's quite good looking. Maybe I could practice my English. So I went to get to know this guy. So I would send the dog towards him. And I would say, "Yankee, come here. Yankee, viens ici. Yankee." After a while, he comes to see me and he says, "Madame, why do you call me Yankee? I'm from Texas." And he was my future husband. You see, he became my husband. He sent me a dozen of red flowers with somebody, with a little card, and on it said, "Will you marry me?" And stupid me, I said yes. Oh well, it lasted. I stayed in America 16 years, 10 in Texas and 6 in California. Yeah. But you know, in Normandy, we love Americans, and in Carentan very much, yeah. And I was raised until I was 8 years old in Carentan.
And where did you go?
After that? Well, you know, Normandy is made up of 5 counties. You have Upper Normandy, capital Rouen. Rouen, you know, where Joan of Arc was burned at the stake by the British like you. Sorry. Then you have Lower Normandy. I'm trying to think, capital Caen, I believe. See, I'm getting old. Anyway, what did I? Yeah, so I went to live in the Orne County in Argentan. Argentan, yeah. Then after that, I moved. So I was born in the Manche. Then I moved to the Orne County. When I came back from America, I went to live in the Eure County. I worked for the Normandy Tourist Board there, in charge of promoting Normandy. In Évreux, you know. Then after the Eure County, I came to Calvados County, where my mother and her husband were living. So I live in all 5 counties of Normandy. So you cannot find more Norman than me. But as I said to American, in the 70s, you know, I went to inquire in America to become American citizen. And at that time, I don't know if it still is like that, I don't think so. They asked me to renounce to my mother country, you know, to give up my mother country to become American. And I said, sorry, my heart is half American, but I will always be a French girl, French woman. So I came back, and I'm glad I came back. But now I need to go back one last time before I'm too old. Because I have many friends that I have known for 50 years, you know, and I want to see them before I die. Wait. Voilà.
Eh bien.
So I was a guide for a while, as you know, you saw me on the landing beaches. Today I have a son, because you know this American that I married, my son when he was born, he was made in Texas, as he says, and born in Normandy, because I came back to Normandy to have him. I wanted my mother to be nearby, and he has dual citizenship, and he speaks American with no accent, French with no accent. And he's a guide on the D-Day landing beaches, specialized in the American sector. Yeah. So his company is called American D-Day Tours. My company when I was a guide was Normandy Yours.
Normandy?
Yours.
Yours, oh yeah.
NormandyYours.com. Yeah, so I'm 80 years old now, so I don't feel so much like doing long day tours, you know. I have done it once in a while, but now I prefer to do presentations like what I'm telling you now. If you have a group coming to Normandy, I could get on board the bus and tell what I just told you, or I can go to the breakfast room or whatever. I'm very flexible on the place and date and all this, and I can give a little presentation with pleasure.
Have you got other memories?
Memories. If I looked at the article that I have, I could maybe.
Where is it there?
No, not there. That box over there, I think. No, no, that's not it. It's the black thing there. Yeah, I have article there. In there, probably. Merci. Oh, the article here was written by my ex-husband because he was a reporter for the San Diego Union and the Abilene Reporter News. That's a picture of my mom at the time, in the midst of war. So it's in English, but I don't know if you can take a picture of that.
Oh, your mom's name was Fernand.
Fernand, yes. Oh, by the way, Colin, I didn't shake your hand, you know, because this hand is not tan. This hand is dirty. You know why? In the 60s, it was shaken by General de Gaulle in Argentan, in the Orange County. I met him. He shook my hand. He was there, you know, shaking hands with everybody. I stuck my hand out with General de Gaulle. And later on, in 1987, in 1987, as I was director of the Caen tourist office, Prince Charles came to represent his mother, Queen Elizabeth, and he was with Lady Diana. And he came to the town hall, and there was a ceremony to welcome him. And being the tourism director, I was introduced to Prince Charles. And he says, you know, the surprise I had is his hands. I expected soft hands. They were coarse. They were not smooth, you know, and I was surprised. And he says to me, Madame, are the local people worried about this tunnel, which is being dug under the channel right now? It was 1987, okay? I said, no, sir, I think that it's going to bring more British people to visit France and Normandy. No, it's a good thing. And he says, don't worry. When they get to the middle of the tunnel, they probably will run out of money. That's what Prince Charles said to me. There was an English newsman there. He wrote an article, Prince Charles says, and he quoted what Charles said to me in 1987. So this hand, you see, hasn't been washed since.